Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Okay, the price of XRP and the broader crypto market not looking so hot. Prices have been decimated, so what's next? Well, I want to share with you thoughts from a number of analysts within the space, and one of the things that I found most interesting came from Raoul Pal, who is a former Goldman Sachs executive. He's also the founder and CEO of Real Vision. Also, as invested in XRP, he is an XRP holder, and he does believe in $10 plus XRP. When XRP was around the $1 mark, he was saying from there a tenfold increase would make sense, in particular if things go well in the SEC versus Ripple case, which means given the fact that XRP is at 51 cents, it's looking like more like a 20-fold increase from here if he ends up being correct. But Raoul Pal, he's warned today that recession is likely coming. Now remember, though, recession doesn't mean doomsday, not necessarily anyway. It typically just means that to some degree there will be fewer job opportunities and less business growth, but a reduction in such things is not the same thing as an outright catastrophe, not necessarily anyway. And so it's not to say recessions are okay. I blame people at the top typically that cause them, in terms of who's running our governments. But for anybody that's scared, I just think it's a very scary word for some people. It's bad. Just focus on making sure that if you're not retired, you need to have a job. Make sure you've got a job so that you're taken care of. You can put food on the table, and your family's taken care of. That's number one priority. But as far as investments in the stock market and the crypto asset class, even when they go down, it is just temporary. I just put out a recent video, so I'm not going to go in depth on that idea in this video. But history shows we get out of recessions and things get better. And given that crypto provably follows the direction of the stock market, what the hell are you worried about? Because for you to be worried about this tremendously, for it to make logical sense, in terms of where your crypto investment or your stock portfolio is right now, if you are worried about whether or not it's going to get better, if you don't think it's going to get better, you'd have to actually believe, if you're in the United States in particular, because that's where I am, you'd have to believe that the United States would cease to exist. You'd have to actually believe right now, because you're talking about the economy never coming back. That's what you're talking about. It won't get better. Look at this, because I was curious. I was like, how many recessions have happened in recent history? And so I just Googled it, and the History Channel happened to pop up, and here's a headline: How the U.S. got out of 12 economic recessions since World War II. And I'm not going to read the article, it's just to make the point. There have been 12 recessions. Each felt like the end of the world, but they weren't really. And some were worse than others. It's not to make it out as if it's okay, for whoever led us down that path to get us to that point. I'm not saying that. I am saying that there's still opportunity out there, and the world's going to keep on turning. It is going to be okay. But markets eventually straighten things out. There have been 12 recessions since the end of World War II, but markets tend to eventually straighten things out. That's what history shows. So anyway, I want to share with you what Raoul Pal had to say and some others. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. Here's a tweet from Bitcoin maximalist Anthony Pompliano. He shared a piece of information that I found rather fascinating, and this is from just this afternoon. Breaking: El Salvador just bought 500 more Bitcoin. They purchased the Bitcoin at an average price of $30,744. A nation state is buying the dip, and he's got a little brain explode emoji there. Take from that what you will. I just found it fascinating. El Salvador, in this for the long haul, right or wrong, they are in it for the long haul, and I hope they're right. I'd rather Bitcoin just continue to exist. That would be just swell as far as I'm concerned. Here's a tweet from chart analyst Leb Crypto. Many cryptos hitting major macro support zones. Unless this is a March 2020 replay, this is a great area to average in. So as far as March 2020, that is when, and I was here, folks, XRP dropped down to like 11 cents. That was the pandemic business when all that hit. So stocks were dropping, crypto followed in kind. I was making videos about it at the time. People were freaking out back then, the same as they are today. totally different world in terms of price action, where even for XRP, frankly, that a dip happened and XRP is at 51 cents now. Think about that. Okay. Okay. But last time, I mean, maybe it gets worse too. Like, I don't know if we're bottomed out, or, where that might be if we're not bottomed out, but I'm just saying we got down to 11 cents. And history shows, since we have benefit of hindsight now, of course, got a couple years under the belt here, literally, that would have been a great time for people that wanted to get into crypto to have purchased, but people were too afraid to buy there. By and large, people were panic selling. And take a look at this. This is also from Lub Crypto. This is from May 6th, and I covered this tweet on the channel. Now, at the time when I recorded this, that video where I talked about that on May 6th, XRP at the time was somewhere in the neighborhood of 61 cents, and Lub Crypto wrote the following. Major reload zone, in my opinion, is 40 to 50 cents. Getting in buy orders there will likely prove well for a juicy swing long trade this year, hashtag XRP. So he was warning, as XRP was at 61 cents or so, that it may go down to about 40 cents. It's just been a few days and we got as low as 48 cents, at least at the time that I'm recording this. So even if it does go a bit lower, whatever it is, he's still optimistic for the long haul is not going to matter. He's long term. His perspective as far as where XRP is going hasn't changed. He still thinks it's going to hit at least $10 this market cycle before it's complete. And realistically, he thinks that that's too conservative. He said that many times, but he was right here. Again, 40 to 50 cents, that seems like a reload zone. And then he noted today, just this afternoon, upon that getting tapped, he said, reload zone triggered, 50 cents tagged, hashtag XRP. Not the end of the world, folks. And then you have a chart analyst, Credible Crypto, who this morning tweeted out the following. He's talking about Bitcoin here. He says, lows have been taken out. Not quite at the demand zone yet, but I'm sure we will be there shortly. Need to see a solid reaction off this level. Bitcoin. So he's talking about the $29,000 to $32,000 level. Now, I think it was yesterday I was covering some other information from him, in which he was sharing that he does think more likely than not that $29,000 to $32,000 range, not only would it get hit, but that would form or prove to be sufficient support, meaning it would bounce off that. So that'd be more likely than not the worst it would get. He does recognize there is an opportunity for it to go lower than that. He just doesn't think that's what's probable at this point. And then this afternoon, he tweeted out the following about Bitcoin. He wrote, first decent reaction we have gotten, but need to get back above $33,000 for it to be considered significant. So that's the level to watch for, and we are not there. As at the time of recording this, Bitcoin's $30,930. So we'll keep on watching. And then there was this. I found this interesting. I want to share this as well. There was a tweet from XRP community member Frecky, and he wrote the following. LOL, 4 stablecoins in top 10 right now. Reality is those should be stripped out to their own ranking, but it is there nevertheless, based on market cap. And so, my friends, this is something that I've bitched about on this channel a number of times. And so I shared this screen grab. This is from my phone earlier today at some point this afternoon, whatever time, 3:30 p.m. this afternoon. So I shared this screen grab and I wrote the following, because this is absurd to me. 4 stable coins in the top 10 by market cap. And I wrote, as I've said many times, every crypto index is doing a disservice to viewers by including stable coins as a default setting. No one goes to coin market cap to see if Tether is still $1. 4 stable coins in the top 10 illustrates how ridiculous their policies are. And so there you go. You got Tether, you got USDC, UST, and BUSD. Now, it is interesting, and I noticed this at the time. UST was a bit lower than you'd expect as stablecoins at 96 cents at that time. And as it turns out, something that doesn't typically happen. And by the way, this does not justify having stablecoins in the top 10 by default. I'm not against them being featured on the website, of course. I'm just saying by default, it doesn't make people are not coming here to see if these are still $1. Now, coincidentally, it turns out that UST ended up dipping dramatically. But that's not something that would remotely make me change my opinion, because this type of thing almost never happens. And it would still make news, and this type of thing shouldn't happen, but it is. The blockchain backer shared this. He wrote, Terra's UST stablecoin has lost its peg to United States dollar, currently at 70 cents per $1. So, folks, way lower than when I took that screen grab. 70 cents. And then he said, which has caused a massive surge in BTC UST, not Bitcoin valued in dollars, but valued in the UST stablecoin. It's still going. This is going to be a big thing for politicians, man. Oh man, you can see here's his last screen grab, and it was at 64 cents at the time. So yeah, that is ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous. But either way, that's a separate idea from whether or not they should be listed in in market cap rankings. It's just the answer is no. It's nobody wants to see that, but the index sites, they're just doing it anyway. And then there was this from the blockchain backer. He tweeted out earlier today, said, going to do my normal morning thing, stepping away from my desk for an hour. If you guys decide to print a monster green candle while I'm gone, I'd be cool with that. And then a bit later, he tweeted in the afternoon, he tweeted out the following. That's the opposite of a monster green candle, guys. Yeah, no kidding. Things definitely tanked. And then he said, markets continue in a straight line down. XRP takes out year-plus lows at 50 cents. Bitcoin hits $30,400, putting Michael Saylor's Bitcoin bag in the negative. Woo! Now, I always knew this was possible. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And there's been talk of a margin call on his bag at $21,000 Bitcoin should that happen. But either way, Bitcoin at that level, $30,400, that put Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy, his Bitcoin bag, in the negative. Now, he's a long-term guy, so I doubt this did anything to change his perspective, and I'd rather see success than failure, so hopefully Bitcoin's going to be around eternally. I hope the bet's right, but man, this is not a fun time for him, I would bet, this particular day, because the pressure that he'd be feeling from people. Anyway, and then there's this from chart analyst Michael Vanderpop. I don't know how deep the markets are going to correct, as an additional outlier of the Luna UST peg is playing its part of the drop. All I know is the UST peg is a temporary shock, and I'm assuming we'll trade around $35,000 in the next 24 to 48 hours for Bitcoin. So there you go. Despite what's happened with the stablecoin UST and it dropping, losing its USD peg, it's still optimistic that sooner or later, within the next day or two, Bitcoin's going to be back up to about the $35,000 level. And by the way, that is what I'm seeing from most of the analysts that I follow. There are some that are predicting maybe you are going to see a break below that $29,000 level. So I don't pretend to know. I'm just sharing with you what the opinions that I'm coming across from analysts that I follow. Here's Income Sharks, another analyst. He wrote, Bitcoin, 3 hours to daily close. Today has been wild. Tuesday, most likely green. Well, I hope you're right, Income Sharks. I wouldn't mind seeing that, nor would anyone else. And then there was this from Raoul Paul, and this is what I was referencing at the outset of the video. Look, the concern from his perspective is recession and all the tumult that you've seen in global markets, not just crypto. Crypto follow the stock market, but look at the stock market. There's a lot of reasons for all this I'm not going to get into in this video. I think it would be outside the scope of this video, maybe even the channel. But that's why it makes more sense it doesn't make as much sense to freak out about the current price of crypto and the stock market. Stocks and crypto aren't going away. It makes more sense to make sure that you and your family are taken care of. The rest of the stuff just works itself out. So focus on, if anything, focus more on making sure that you've got gainful employment unless you're retired and you don't need to be employed. Right? And then it's like, okay. But here's what Raoul Paul had to say. Macro update. The S&P 500 is now very close to pricing in a near immediate recession. Expect growth to collapse. And the technical definition of recession is 2 quarters back-to-back with negative growth. Yikes. Anyway, and then he says, the next step for the great unwind is oil. If this line goes, and I'll make this full screen, if this line goes, then inflation expectations, which are hugely correlated to oil, will fall. And then, in his final tweet here, he said, then we should see yields fall while equities/crypto/commodities see a full liquidation over the next few weeks. Then the Fed pivots a la 2018, but it will be too late, and job layoffs are coming. House prices are likely to reverse somewhat and the economy will contract. Well, that may indeed be the direction that things go. It doesn't mean it's going to be a doomsday scenario. I don't know how bad it will get. Nobody does. But even if that does happen, again, history shows markets eventually straighten out. So whether it takes weeks or months or over a year, whatever it ends up being. In most recessions, they actually don't last that long. I should have looked that number before recording this, but it just popped in my head now. Google it yourself, but I know that recessions, they typically last like a year or maybe two. I don't fact check or look it up yourself. Let's leave it there. But recessions historically don't last that long. It's not the end of the world. They're bad. They're not fun, but they're not typically the end of the world. And again, unless you think that the United States is going to cease to exist, and I don't think that for a second, the stock market's going to come back, the economy comes back, and crypto comes back. Historically, that's what's happened every time to this point. Unless you think this is the one time where we're no longer a country. Like, I'm not buying that. I'm definitely not buying that. I'm not of that mindset. So hopefully you aren't either, but I'll go ahead and wrap up there. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.